Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the series premiere of Kowloon and Generic Romance. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, I remember reading the premise a little bit about what this series was about, but it was a while ago, and I was like, I don't really remember the details of it. So, I've never read the manga, so this was kind of my first dive into this series, and it's interesting and weird because I'm not sure what the story is, because we kind of get introduced to the world. They make reference to like Kowloon of the past and present, and I don't know if that has to deal with the way the episode ends. Like, I don't know if, because it seems like there's old Kowloon and then there's new Kowloon, because they bring it up later on about like Kudo lives in a certain like Kowloon, because if you look at the map, it looked like the map was divided up into two, like technically like three plate pieces, and I don't know if like each one kind of represents like a different Kowloon, like maybe a very old Kowloon, more present Kowloon, and a futuristic Kowloon, like one kind of being the old-fashioned one, maybe some being more up to date and gentrified in some ways. But we meet like both our protagonists, Kujiari and not Kujiari, sorry, Kujirai and Kudo, and they work for a real estate company. It's interesting because she seems like she might have been the more stoic, like, personality, and he seems to be the goofball, him hijacking and jumping right in front of her when she's about to do her time card, and it's like 8:59, about to turn 9 o'clock. He gets in first, making her late, even though she showed up first to put her time card in first. But they eventually went out to go eat, but she wanted to go to a very specific spot, but he was like, no, we're going to go to this place that we go to all the time. Because it ends up being this interesting conversation they have throughout the episode about nostalgia, and about how Kowloon, like, he's like, because they talk about, because later on, Kujirai is talking about how that place she wanted to go to, she kind of wanted to go there because a lot of new places don't last long in Kowloon. And he's like, yeah, that's just how Kowloon is. People love Kowloon and the way it is and everything about it. You know, it doesn't like change, and it will change. It's kind of interesting. And he's like, yeah, because people are nostalgic about Kowloon and don't ever want it to be anything different than what it is that they've come to know and love. Like, why change it? It doesn't need to change, which is so interesting. Which obviously being stuck in the past can be a bad thing, which we'll see like what the messaging and overall theme and element, the themes of this series end up being. They also had that thing where like Kuji, right, constantly throughout the episode was like grabbing her, taking her glasses off and like grabbing her face because she was like, oh, my eyes are kind of hurting. And it's like, oh, like, could you need better prescriptions for your glasses? And he suggested later on, like, yo, go to the eye doctor, and she actually did, and it turns out her vision actually improved, so she didn't need to wear glasses anymore. Her vision is like 20/20 now, and it's like, interesting, how did that happen? Because she was about to use like the eye drops that were advertised throughout the episode about that pharmaceutical company that came out with some, but he was like, hey, don't use that. Like, the fact is, ever since like the owner's son took over, he's like, that business can't be trustworthy, that guy seems super shady. I don't know why Kudo feels that way, but they also talk about kind of like Kudo's philosophy on taking care of like the places that people rent. It's like, oh yeah, what about this place? It hasn't been rented out for 6 months. He's like, yeah, like there's no AC unit, and the window, like where it's positioned, you're constantly getting the sun in, so it's like it's not livable. But he's like, yeah, if you paint it up a little bit, because I'm assuming paint would, I guess I never think about that stuff, but like I guess paint would, you know, depending on the coloring and stuff like that, would probably help maybe lessen some of the heat, make it more acceptable to people. Like, you spruce it up a little bit more, obviously people might want to take the place, but like I said, some of the painting the walls might help reduce some of the natural heat that comes into the place. I think with probably, I guess I just never think about that type of stuff, if that's what that was kind of implying. But yeah, he's like, as like the thing he likes about a job is like he wants to make people as comfortable as possible in the places that they're renting out to him. So it's the thing of like, yeah, I care about the customer and I want them to be happy in the places, like comfortable, you know. But going back to like Kujirai and her eyes, it's like, oh, doesn't she look pretty without them? And he had to be kind of the contrarian, and like, I think she looks prettier with her glasses. And you're like, huh, interesting. To the point later on, she is wearing her glasses again, but like Kudo's like, oh, you're doing that because I made fun of the fact that you've got lines at the corner of your eyes. Like, is that what you're doing? He's like, you're 32, just kind of accept it. Don't worry about trying to rewind time and stuff. But yeah, that was when they were on the roof having that conversation about nostalgia. And she was like, yeah, I don't kind of have that same connection with Kowloon that other people do. She's like, I don't feel the nostalgia. I don't taste that flavor of nostalgia here. But he was like, but she was like, but I do feel that nostalgia with you. And then he kind of closed in on her at that moment. And it's just like, okay, what's that mean? And it's just kind of like, and he kind of like brought up the lines at her eyes things, just kind of like, I think, to kind of change the vibe of that conversation after things kind of got weird and intimate the moment he got so close to her. They also brought up generic Terra, that thing that's in the sky. Some people on the street were talking about it, saying something. I think they were implying like there was someone backing it and it was unclear, but they were like, yeah, it might be that pharmaceutical company that's constantly referenced throughout the episode, same one behind the eye drops and stuff. I might have been misreading the subtitles. Didn't they say like, and I might have just brought my own BS into it, but weren't they bringing up like generic Terra being kind of a form of immortality? Like, because the way Kudo was describing it is like, oh, it's kind of like a fake Earth they made. But like the way they were talking about it on the news made it sound like it's kind of like a giant cloud database of like all your memories could be stored there, like being a form of immortality that even when you die, there's going to, all that you are is going to be collected as data up on that thing. I guess that's what it's meant to be, like a giant heaven, like a second life server, I guess, in a way is what that's supposed to be. If that was that could be my complete misunderstanding of it, but that's the way they kind of made it. And then Kudo said the whole like second Earth thing. I was like, interesting. Why? And I mean, or are people actually living there, or is it just like I said, just kind of basically storage? Because they made it sound like it's just storage for like, oh, like your everything that you are and all your memories and everything can be stored in there as a form of immortality. Even the companies like kind of got like this mascot and some of the merch with it on it selling's pretty well and stuff like that. And even the people on the news being all smiling and stuff, which felt weird. That felt very like, I don't know if something's going to come of that or not. Whether that's just like, oh, just them on the news acting that way. But the people, like the lady interviewing the guy about the shirts, they're both massively smiling. You cut to the newscast anchors and they're smiling. This one, like, something felt weird and off about that. But later, Kudo took Kujirai to a place where it's like, oh, what was it called? Twilight Ave, I believe. Avenue is what it was called. But basically, it's like, let me show you the flavors of Kowloon. Took her to different places to eat. And she got stuffed until they went to, was it the Goldfish Tea House? And the guy was just like, oh, Kudo, you're here. Oh, and you kind of brought someone. And I thought it was interesting because when we first meet Kujirai, she's waking up eating watermelon. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then like they ordered iced coffee, and then on the house, they brought her watermelon. I was like, huh. I mean, because they didn't, I mean, I guess it was technically for both of them, but it was more so on Kujirai's side. I was like, that's interesting. You didn't say anything about her liking watermelon. You just, and she brings up the whole point of like, oh yeah, it's interesting how like there's a little bit of a certain tasty taste after, you know, smoking after eating watermelon, which I would never know because I don't really eat watermelon. Plus I don't smoke. So I wonder how true that is, but either way, Kudo kind of got a little nostalgic when he was like, oh, he was like, I was just thinking about the fact that someone else said that. She's like, oh, interesting. I've never heard anyone else say something like that. And Kudo made this interesting thing of, it's like nice when you meet people who have the same habits as someone else because it makes you think about them. So I was like, and obviously that has a deeper meaning later on. But as they were leaving, the bartender, the owner of the tea house was like, "Oh, like you and it's like, oh, this guy, he was able to bring his girlfriend." And she's like, "No, no, 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 that I'm not his girlfriend." And it's like, "Aren't you going to clarify that? That guy thought we were dating." And Kudo laughed. She's like, "Yeah, what if you brought your girlfriend around? Like that'd kind of be a little awkward." And he was like, "You don't have to worry about that," which I immediately took as. That doesn't sound like well, you don't have to worry about me having a girlfriend in the future, but that sounded more like I had a girlfriend that died. And that's how I read that. But I was like, but why would Home Dude mistake Kujirai for said girlfriend? And why would they not know that she's dead? To be fair, he hasn't gone there in a while. And the fact is, when he does show up again, he shows up with Kujirai. So that might, well, like I said, we'll talk about when we get to the end of discussions. But he gave her a fish to take back home with her. So... But I thought was interesting too is like the next day she tried to find that same tea house and she couldn't find it no matter how hard she tried. She's like, "No, it's supposed to be around here, isn't it?" I guess she was going to go back to probably like try and like, "No, I should probably clarify that. I don't want things to be awkward for Kudo and any future significant other he might have," just to kind of clarify that. But and maybe it's just also like, right, I really like this spot, but now it's like, oh, I can't even find it now. That's weird. Then they're both off working. He's checking some items and she's painting that said apartment and obviously guzzling down water because the only thing in there is a fan. Makes her way through most of it except for one wall and nearly passes out from heat stroke, even though the radio is literally "Hey, everybody watch out for the heat, kind of stay indoors, but even if you're indoors, be careful of heat stroke." But luckily Kudo showed up and he's like, "Ooh, kind of perfect for the hero to show up in time," and stuff like that. Once again, just even those moments he has to like overcompensate by being goofy. But he had brought her a drink and I was like, "No, I'll take care of the last wall." And it's interesting because in that moment she's just kind of like, "I like this person." And I'm curious, how long has she liked him? Has it just developed over this episode, or was it already bubbling beneath the surface and this just kind of brought it, we're kind of there while she's realizing, or like I said, she's always realized it and it's just coming out more and more. But like the next day she comes into work and she sees him sleep and she ends up like trying to mess with him, but he kind of opens his eyes, smiles, and kisses her. Not just some little kiss. That wasn't no peck. That was a deep lover's kiss, like tongue deep. And she's pulling away like, "Yo, yo, yo, yo." And he's like, "Right, sorry, I mistook you for somebody," and just like, "Wait, you're just gonna casually walk away like, yep, I thought you were someone else," and just moved on. It's like, oh, we're not even gonna have a conversation about it. And for her, she's stressing about it because she's like, "Am I the only one that's gonna act like it meant anything or have any questions about that?" He's just pretending like, "Nah, it's fine," and just moved on. But then, like, amongst his stuff, she found a photo which says Reiko and Hajime, and it's a picture of a woman who looks just like her, who also wears glasses. So that kind of makes you go, is that why he was more into her wearing glasses? Being like, oh, she looks prettier with glasses. It's kind of like, I don't know if this is going to be like a doppelganger situation or what, like whatever happened to her, because like they must be around the same age. So you live in Kowloon, like has she not lived in Kowloon very long? Is she actually fairly new to the city? Because she says she has no nostalgia for it, so maybe she hasn't lived here long. And why has no one else brought it up? But I guess it's like, unless maybe it's just one of those things where the city I don't know, because I feel like there's a deeper level to that, and maybe the manga like explores the storyline more and more as you get deeper into the series. But like, I was thinking like maybe it's almost that thing of how the whole thing of like, oh, Kowloon is nostalgic and stuff. Maybe it's almost a situation of almost like the city's nostalgic now that she's not here anymore. So there's another version of her there. I mean, once again, it all plays into Kudo's elements and themes about, oh, like nostalgia and someone reminding you of someone else. Like the whole watermelon thing and the whole girlfriend thing and the whole wearing glasses thing and why he's kind of weird around her and saying, don't worry about, complicate things with my girlfriend. Because once again, I think she died, but it's unclear. And now it's just like, who's this woman who looks like me, who also likes the guy that I liked? I like him, but then it turns out he was already with someone that kind of looks like me and apparently is a lot like me, and I remind him of said person. And that's where you kind of, wouldn't be like, I think I've come across some manga and manhwa and storylines that have kind of used that similar thing. Once again, I don't know which way they're going to use it in the whole Reiko versus Kujirai situation of like what that's about, because I think this is labeled a science fiction show. I mean, obviously the Terra, generic Terra thing in the sky, but like whatever that thing is might be a science fiction-y thing. I don't know. Because we don't actually know her first name, do we? Because Kujirai is obviously her last name. I don't think we know. Because I kept thinking like, oh, it's a different person's name, but I'm like, maybe it's not. Maybe her first name is Reiko. Because I'm assuming because obviously it says Reiko and Hajime. So I assume obviously his name is Hajime, but I'm like, I actually don't know if Kujirai's first name is Reiko. I mean, obviously we'll probably find out later. I could probably look it up and just easily read it on a Wikipedia page or something. But that's why I'm like, I don't know what to fully make of that. Like I said, I just assume like, oh, that's her name and that's not like Kujirai's first name. Because I felt like she would have probably brought that up if that was the case. All she said was like, yeah, just looking like, who's this woman that looks like me who was with the guy that I also like. So I'm sure that's going to complicate things too, because it's going to be a thing of how much are you looking at me versus how much is you just looking at the woman that you lost that you loved. Like, I don't, I'm sure that's going to play part of whatever this story ends up being. I'm, like I said, interesting first start to all of this. I don't know. I have no idea what to fully expect. Like I said, I remember reading the synopsis, but I don't remember the details of the synopsis. So I kind of pseudo went into this blind, so I have no idea where this is going and how this will continue to play out. But I'm excited to see. Obviously, I'm getting this a little late. The second episode actually dropped, well, technically yesterday at the time we were recording this. So I'm really interested to see where this goes going forward. Because there was also that bit at the end when she went back to the the tea house, and she was talking to the guy, and he's like, well, yeah, I was there. I know about this photo because I took it for you with you and Kudo. And then she's like, what? And then she like look like holds her head, and then we see like everything around her like shift for a quick second and turns dilapidated. And then I'm like, wait, what is that? Like, is there something to this where like, is this place not fully real? Is it kind of like a bit of like, is there almost like this nostalgia wave across Kowloon? Is that what it really looks like? And everyone's stuck in this haze? I mean, maybe it has something to do with that generic Terra, now that I'm thinking about it. Maybe it's casting like, oh, because everyone's like, it's going to be a weird reference to make. But, if you're familiar with it, follow me. What if this is kind of like a Final Fantasy X situation? How Xanarkin existed because basically the Fate, spoilers for Final Fantasy X, the Fate were dreaming and their memories of what Xanarkin looked like and its people manifested Xanarkin, but like Xanarkin was destroyed like 1,000 years ago. So what if it's kind of like that, where it's like the generic Terra is casting this like mist and maze over the city of nostalgia because it's collected people's memories of what Kowloon was, and it's kind of perpetuating that. Like, so is that tea house? I mean, the tea house, is it not even really there anymore? Because even that guy disappeared when it shifted into that dilapidated form. So I don't think this is going to be a time travel thing of like time is getting out timey-wimey and bleeding together, like past and present and future all colliding. It could easily be that too, but I'm wondering if this, like I said, is this going to be like a Xanarkin from Final Fantasy X situation or not? We'll have to wait and see. Like I said, just the first episode. Maybe the next episode will give me a little bit more clarity on what direction this might all go and what reveals we'll get. But yeah, I'm interested to see what happens next. But really, that's all I want to talk about. And the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.